Hey everybody. We are a couple minutes late, but hopefully nobody's too upset. I I was just rambling on to myself for the past couple minutes because I didn't realize that I had to click the go live button on YouTube. So that shows how long it's been since I have since I've done something like this. Additionally, you might notice that I'm back on YouTube. I'm not streaming to multiple services. XSplit is a perfectly fine piece of software. I just didn't really like it that much. So I'm coming back to OBS, and maybe OBS can do multi-streams now, but I haven't spent the time to look at it. So here we are. It's been quite some time since my last stream, obviously, but there's a few reasons for that. Mainly for those of you who don't know or weren't around when I was streaming before. At the time I had a full-time day job leading a team. I was streaming, once a week or so, multiple hours. I was teaching for SANS, which is very much a part-time job. And then because SANS and leading a team aren't technical, like they're not research positions, but they require you to be technical. I was spending what little free time I had left doing research and keeping myself technical. So I didn't have a lot of time for myself, which was, not good. So that's why I haven't been streaming for a while. This year, obviously with COVID happening, just not as much going on. I've only taught a couple times this year and not in several months. So I'm not saying that I'm coming back to streaming. Certainly not going to be as frequent as I was previously, but I do enjoy streaming. So I'm hoping maybe like once a month or something, we'll come on and do some hacking. I'm working on a personal project right now, which is taking most of my off-hour technical time. And once that's closer to ready to be released, I will have a lot more videos coming out about it. It's going to be a CTF fee challenge based system software platform. I'm not really sure what to call it yet, but it's going to heavily focus on tutorial videos to teach the basic concepts, and then have just a ton of challenges to work through. So hoping maybe sometime next year. I'm not sure yet. But that's kind of what I'm working on now, and that will result in a lot more videos. Anyways, welcome to my fairly messy office. It is less messy than it was last week, but it's still not clean. And this is curated. This view behind me, like if you had the view that I had, like it's just a mess, like all right here. So. The poll said it was almost 50-50 on cam or no cam, but cam slightly eked out a win. So we're doing a cam for this stream, and if it works out well and people like it, we'll keep it for next stream. If not, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So let's dive in. So today we're going to do the Olympus box. Yes, my desk is moving. We're going to do the Olympus box. It's been a while since I've done this box. I did it back when it first came out, I think. But I haven't done a video on it. I remember enjoying it, and it was a lot of fun. So I figured, why not do it? I do remember that there was one pretty frustrating part of it that was a little bit guessy. And I'm not a big fan of just like taking random guesses. But it was a little guessy. We'll get to that part. I'll talk a little bit about it and we'll kind of move on. But I did review some of my notes from the last time that I did it. And by notes, I mean just like tool output. I'm really bad at keeping notes, as some of you might already know. So I have a vague recollection of what we're supposed to do and kind of the path through it. But we might stumble here and there. And that's okay. We're allowed to do that. So here's the box. Hack the Box has changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, if you've been using it a lot, then you already know. But my oh my, the metrics and statistics that you can grab. I'm not even using like the new UI beta, which is just a massive change. But even with this, we've got this kind of spider graph or radar graph talking about the different types of like skills that we'll need to pass it. So a bit of enumeration. It's kind of CTF-y, and I agree with that. I'm not sure about custom exploitation. If I recall correctly, it's a little more CVE focused. There's some known exploits that we're going to take advantage of. But I do think it's real life-ish. And what I mean by that, and one of the things I liked about this box is that there is some gain access to a place, enumerate a little bit, gain either new credentials or a new path forward, and then hop to the next place. And that's something that I haven't done like Endgame or any of the labs, and I really want to do some of the pro labs, but that's something that I think in the normal boxes of Hack the Box is missing, is that kind of pivoting from place to place. Whereas, on engagement, when we're doing pen tests or red team exercises, that's something we're doing a lot, is gain some sort of access, enumerate that access, get either creds or a pivoting opportunity or something to move on to the next place. And I think that our labs, our, Hack the Box, whenever we get a box like this where we can pivot as part of the box, I think that's fun and something to kind of call out as a good call. All right. So there's some fun stuff here. So this is a brand new Kali box. I had evidently just totally messed up my previous Kali box to where like half the tools weren't working. Just didn't update and for a long time, and then updated, and it broke some libraries and all that stuff. So this is a brand new Kali box. I have my connection folder to set up my VPN, and that's like it. So my standard process, if you haven't been on one of these streams before, is I generally create a directory to keep all of my tool output in and make some notes if I need to. But we're going to get started. Some of you may be familiar with this tool, this wrapper, I guess, called MAI that I've used in the past. What it does is it does a fast, so it'll increase the timing and everything, and it does a fast scan of all 65535 ports that are available in TCP. It finds the open ones and then goes back and does a scripted scan against those and then saves the output. I don't use it on engagement, but it's a really good Hack the Box tool, because that's like the very first two steps that I do on every Hack the Box box. And then it'll also pull out like HTTP servers, since those are very common in Hack the Box. And it'll even try and fingerprint the type of web technology that's being used and generate like a dir search or a GoBuster string for me to just copy and paste and run dir search or GoBuster or something against the HTTP server, because that is another very common first step in Hack the Box. I normally use it. I'm not going to use it in this box for one specific reason, and I'll show this in just a second. So we are, I don't think we need all of the ports. We're just going to run a scan against Olympus here, and it's 10.10.10.83. 83, and we'll output this to 83 OA to Nmap. We'll just call this TCP scan. We'll let this run through. The other reason why I really like MAI is because since I have all the timing set up and like everything's super tuned to just be really fast, it's a lot better for streams. Whereas, running just wild Nmaps can take a while sometimes. Okay. So this is important. The way MAI works is, as I mentioned, it does the port scan first, and then it takes all of the open ports and then rescans those and reports on the second scan only. 95% of the time, which is a completely made up percentage, that is totally fine and actually what you want, at least from Hack the Box. However, when we're doing reconnaissance and scanning and enumeration, the more information, the better. And there's a reason that Nmap shows filtered ports. And that's because the responses that it's getting from that port are different than if it was just closed, right? They're getting some response basically saying, hey, don't look behind this curtain. This is, this is important, this is secret. I should update my eye to show me filtered ports, to be honest. It's not going to rescan them with scripts, but I should update it to show filtered ports because it doesn't right now. So that's why I'm using Nmap for this right now, because having 22 filtered right here is an important bit of information that we need to keep track of for later. And this is another reason why I really like this box. When you get caught up in CTFs and, hack the box and whatnot, at least the way I do CTFs is I tend to find shortcuts, things that are only true for CTFs. So one really great example, and here's a pro tip for CTFs or hack the box really. If you're looking for privilege escalation and you're on a box, find what date the image or container or whatever was created. So you can go into like Etsy, or you can go into user or USR or something like that and find the date stamp that like every single file has. And then you can run a find command looking for any files that are created after that date. Because what happened was they created the image and then they went in and they changed a bunch of files, or they added some software that's part of the challenge. And if you just do a search for the time after the image was created, you're going to see only the stuff that was changed by the challenge creator. That is not useful in hacking at all, but it's extremely useful in like hack the box or CTFs or things like that. When you're in the wild, when you're on an engagement, you're going to run into stuff like this that isn't necessarily going to be super important at the time, but you're going to need to know it's there. So this SSH being filtered, at some point, we may find a way to either open that port or bypass whatever is blocking it, or maybe we're going to gain access to a different location that it then allows us to rescan and see that port 22 is open from that IP address. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it's important. Just know that like little things like this, when you're on an engagement, you want to kind of pay attention to. Okay, so we've got TCP 53 open, which is interesting. So DNS is usually UDP it's not under a few exceptions. So modern DNS has things like text records, which can be bigger than like a normal packet size. And if you have to do multi-packet DNS, it typically switches to TCP for that. Another very common example, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but we can infer this based on the fact that 23 UDP or 2353 TCP is open, is another common example is zone transfers. Zone transfers, less common in the real world, at least on the internet. Once you get behind somebody's perimeter, sometimes you can get zone transfers going. Less common on the internet. If you see TCP 53 on a CTF challenge, try a zone transfer, and we'll again get to that later. But that's another shortcut that you kind of know, that you kind of pick up over time, just doing like this kind of stuff over and over again. And then we have a web server. And as always, web servers are super interesting on Hack the Box. So let's check that out. Now, this is a brand new Kali box, so I don't have Foxy Proxy and all this fancy proxying setup for burp. So my burp might get a little noisy, but luckily we're not going to be doing much or really anything in burp. But we'll go ahead and load up this website. And we see that really there's nothing here. We got an image, we got standard background. We could right click and go to view source or control U or something, but burp is going to give us a little bit more information. So I already have that open. Yeah, we don't need this. It doesn't matter. We'll take a look at this. I've seen in chat rooms, like there was I forget what, there was a box recently, and I won't go too much into it, but there was a box recently that had some issues if you were running it through burp. And somebody in the chat, the chat was like, why would anybody use burp on this box? And it's like, well, burp is pretty much part of web hackers like workflow. Like sometimes I just browse the internet through burp just because like it's just always on. We could just, again, use right-click view source to take a look at the source, but burp is going to show us just a little bit more information and all in one place. And again, if you use burp as part of your workflow, then it's just going to happen. You're just going to get used to this. So here we can see that there's really no dynamic content. You know, HTML head title. There's a meta tag here is really the only thing that's keeping it from like the most baseline HTTP site you could ever have. And even that meta tag isn't much of anything. So I mean, if you're looking for like, you know, JavaScript or PHP or, you know, like Python dynamic websites or anything like that, that's not happening here. So maybe we can start to do some Go bustering if we wanted, but we can also take a look at the headers here, see if there's any cookies or see if there's any dynamic content in the headers. And we see, you know, common headers here. One thing that really, really jumps out at you immediately is, or should jump out at you immediately, is Xdebug. Even if you don't know what this is, even if you don't know the solution to this box, anytime you see the word debug in a production server, that should act like a giant blinking beacon for you. You should immediately start investigating whatever the heck that is, especially in web applications, because in web applications, debug interfaces or debug tags typically are only present in sites that are set up for development. All mention of that should be gone and removed in production. So if you see like a debug, anything referencing debug in like a Flask or a Django application, you're going to get you can basically get a remote Python interpreter through your web browser or through your HTTP connection if you're able to take advantage of that. So anytime you see debug, PHP debug is another great great tip off. But Xdebug, let's take a look at this. Let's start Googling. Oh, I don't have the cert installed, so it's going to be like, oh my God, somebody's trying to hack your web connection. Oh, I can't even bring it in. All right, fine. Download the certificate. Oh, if you're not familiar with this, so if you don't use a ton of burp, if you or you do use a ton of burp, but you always get this error where you have trouble browsing HTTPS connections through burp, you can actually import the burp certificate into your browser, and all of that will go away. Is a neat trick, but to talk about like SSL man in the middle or like TLS machine in the middle or really just the SSL decrypt, TLS decrypt that your office will use through Palo Alto or some other like F5 HTTPS decryptor, it does basically the same thing. It has its own CA and will generate a certificate that IT or security or whoever then installs on all of the endpoints. And they basically terminate the TLS or SSL connection on that box. On that Palo is the most common one these days, I think, but it'll terminate on that box, and then it'll generate its own TLS SSL connection between that box and you. And you're basically trusting the CA on that decryptor on that security device. So this works slightly less complicated, but almost exactly the same as those really expensive boxes. It's just happening inside this VM right here. So we're going to download, we're going to go to, if you just go to burp/, if you have like a weird DNS interceptor from your ISP, it might redirect you, but typically it's just burp/ and it'll bring you to this page. You can click that link, save the file. Then in your browser preferences, and it's different if it's Chrome or Firefox or whatever. Certificates. So all the way down the bottom on privacy security for Firefox, we go to view certificates. We can import, and we just grab that file that we downloaded. We're going to trust it. And then, okay. Be careful doing that in general. Make sure you know and actually trust who you are actually saying you trust. But for burp, it should be fine as long as you restrict. As long as you restrict your pen testing or hacking environment to just that use, you should be all right. So we should go to who. And there we go. No more errors. And we get that little green lock. So we're secure. Nobody's intercepting, right? That's what that means. Hold on. It is really hot. So in San Diego, it is 41 Celsius today, which is a little over 100, something over 100. It's really hot here. And I thought I had my AC on, but I did not. It is now on. Excellent. Okay. That's why I'm all like shiny. I didn't put on any makeup for the show today. Okay, so we were Googling Xdebug 2.5.5, and just to see. So if it is a debug interface, then there may be some sort of like post or a curl command that we can use to execute commands. There may be an exploit, but let's just Google it first and see what this is. Okay, so this is some PHP extension to help debug PHP applications, and evidently it has an exploit. So probably it must be very specific to this this version. How the hell do you live without using your AC normally? Being in Texas, I've never understood how other states go without it. So San Diego, when I was growing up, because I've lived here my entire life, and growing up, that whole trope of San Diego always being 75 was pretty much true. Now our summers get pretty warm, but otherwise we're still, you know, fairly mild temperatures. Our summers we get like a week or two of over 100. To be fair, I've been using our AC for like the past couple weeks because it's been pretty hot here, and it gets really hot in my office specifically. It just switched. I don't know. I've never fully programmed this thermostat. So I have a Nest, but I don't have it like hooked up to the internet or anything. It's just something that I can use locally. And I've never programmed it. So every once in a while it like decides that it's going to be energy saving and just turns off or changes what room it's tracking the temperature of or whatever. So it should have been on. All right. We got a plethora of exploits available for this remote debug. So let's take a look at a couple of these. So this is a metasploit module. Those of you who have tuned into my stream in the past know that I have no problems using Metasploit. In fact, I think Metasploit's a great tool. But it seems weird to like import a module when there's probably just a very straightforward exploit available. Let's see here. So if you write exploits, if you if you're making write-ups, one of the best things you can ever do is explore not just the exploit and the impact of the exploit itself, but actually talk about why it's vulnerable or what steps it took to get vulnerable. And so I'm actually a big fan. Like this is how that Xdebug remoting and evidently connect back is enabled. So this is likely in the PHP config, or maybe in the if the Xdebug is its own module for PHP, then you probably have to go into its specific configuration. Maybe if I remember, I'll take a look at that later. But all right. So evidently they made a vulnerable Docker image, which is great. That's awesome. I love that they did that. And then they've got their own shell, and here's the syntax to use it. So they're using like a local web shell rather than just arbitrary. Oh no, it does do a reverse shell. Okay, so localhost is like you. Okay, so localhost is the shell that it's connecting back to. Okay, so it uses argparse, which if you write Python, argparse is the way to go. It's great for building like command line tools. It binds to port 9000 on any interface, on any local interface. And it grabs a random letter. Okay. Okay, so it's going to start an Xdebug session. So it's using the requests library, which is if you're doing HTTP work in Python, requests it's kind of like a third level abstracted library. So you've got you've got raw sockets at the lowest level, and then you've got like URL lib, which is a built-in library for doing HTTP stuff through Python. But it's kind of a pain. I really don't like it that much. But requests, it abstracts. It's built on top of URL lib, but it kind of abstracts dealing with HTTP and just gives you a really high level interface to deal with. So they're using requests. They're sending a GET request to the target URL, and they're using parameters to start an Xdebug session. And that must be where that random characters being used for is just the name of the debug session. All right. So here's where it's setting up the exploit itself, I think. So con is the okay. So it's going to receive after it sends the debug session, it appears to grab some of that data, sends it to pop debug, splits it on the null byte, oh, okay. So it's just automating the command execution for you. Unless I'm missing something here, like there's no real like hardcore exploit going on. It's just automating using the debug interface to execute commands for you in an interface that behaves like a shell is really all it's doing. So we'll use this to like set up our own reverse shell. Just like it's actually importing that file? No. Okay. So is this file just So we'll set up git clone. All right, and I think unless there's an import that I'm missing here, I think that's the only file we need. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just copy Xdebug shell to HTTP Olympus. Yep. All right, and then if we Python, oh, this is going to be Python 2. The bane of my existence. All right. Well, fine. We'll use Python 2, I guess. Xdebug. Oh, come on. Okay. Do I want to deal with this? All right, let's do this. Xdebug, because what I don't want to do is just like have this super polluted Python 2 environment laying around. So we're gonna virtual env apt update apt install Python virtual env apt search Python. Can we even not get it anymore? Is there like a pip install? Pip install virtual env. Maybe. Nope. Two to three. Oh, yeah. I guess we could do that. All right. So, okay, and Xdebug. Not actually used this tool before, so. So did it actually change it? Because if it didn't change the shebang. So we'll Python 3 mvn vn. Once again, this is a brand new Python Kali box. So my normal like Python tools are not installed. Python 3 and VM. And we will bin activate. And when we try and Xdebug gets mad, Maybe I don't want to deal with this. Maybe I just want to find somebody else's shell. This is way shorter. Why? Okay. However, this is literally just what I described previously, though. So this is just providing you a shell-like interface as it sends the debug messages at the server. Activate. Get rid of that. Just grab this tiny little script. And I don't think anything in here is... Oh, yeah. Because of the hex and the string. Okay, so that's fine. We'll just use... debug shell.py. Into Xdebug. Okay. And oh, so you do a, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why they wouldn't have just baked that into the command, but that's fine. Okay, so we'll Python 2, Xdebug, and we can just but I assume that this is going to be the target. The target is 83, yeah. Does this need to exist? I wonder if the okay, so that does exist. Okay, I don't speak Russian. Firefox doesn't want to translate this for me. Fair enough. X-forwarder. I assume that X-forwarded 4 needs to be the attacker IP, but maybe it needs to be my IP. Yeah. 1669, nice. Nope. maybe we can discern from this other. Okay, so yeah, okay, so the x404 is the local host. And it gives an Xdebug start of some random, which that probably doesn't. So instead, it's listening on 9000. So let's use netcat to see if we're even like receiving anything on 9000 when we send this. No, we're not. Okay. I wonder why we're using wget, because if all we need to do is trigger all they're doing is just grabbing like one random character. Oh, 1 to 6. And it uses that, and it sets okay. Curl is okay. And so that's it. And we should get something back on so it's not that, it's not just that. Okay. So maybe this was too simple. Well, hold on. So this is really weirdly written. So like they defined, seems like they defined the functions like in their call order kind of. So they start the debug, and that's what happens here. And that is the correct IP address, right? Yeah, okay. If we, So the starting, I know I've already gone through this, but so URL with the get parameter of Xdebug session start, and some random ID. Rook should work fine. So if it comes back with like any 200, then it worked, I guess. Okay, so there is a debug session started, so maybe we just need to connect to it now. So what happens if we just like but we should be receiving something on that here. And we're not. That's the thing that is confusing me. It's I'd almost be curious to like I'm curious. Oops, not Venom. If Metasploit has a exploit for it, we can set up, a lot of people don't use this functionality, but you can actually set up proxies inside of Metasploit and have it route its traffic through that proxy, and or you can just set up Wireshark or TCP dump to like dump out the you can dump out or use TCP dump to like read your network traffic, and we can actually see what behavior's going on that way, and we can figure out why this process isn't working. So we'll search for Xdebug. All right, so we'll set our L host to ton0, and we'll set our L port to 443 because it's always 443. And set our R host to 10.10.10.83. That should be good to go. So we'll set up a TCP dump down here, and we'll set it to size 0. And size 0 just basically says like unlimited size, and we'll write this out to exploit.pcamp, and so we want to host 10.10.10.83. Okay, and this should just work. Do we need to bounce this box? Is this box being like ornery? I didn't capture any packets. What? Speed up filters. Pretty sure that was correct. Speed up filters. Yeah, that was just supposed to work. Oh, I mean, that should have just worked, but I guess we could also... Oh, Yeah, okay. So also I 10.0. Looks like MSF module sends the Xdebug session in the cookie header. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Okay, so now we have packets. So we'll Wireshark our exploit.pcap. Let's see, what else do we have here? So looking like from who am I max? I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, I'm glad you liked the stream. I think IPSEC is the godsend for the security community on YouTube. Given my record of streaming, I don't know that that qualifies. But there's so many good security streamers out there, though. So definitely give like Live Overflow and IPSEC. And then over on Twitch, there's just a ton of security streamers out there. Blind Hacker is pretty... active. I don't know if the Colonial still streams, but they do pretty good work as well. So let's follow the TCP stream. Okay, so it's sending the Xdebug session as a cookie as well, which is interesting. And there's the X forwarded for, but it just like never... Do we get anything back on 9,000? No. What the F, man? Do we have... No. What the actual F is going on here? Let's bounce the box, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, I don't really know why this isn't working. This should work. Like I said, it's been ages since I've done this box, but I'm fairly positive this is the correct path forward. That's one thing. So while this is going, one thing about like metasploit and using it to learn more than just using it to pwn stuff. This is especially important. I know a lot of my viewers are in the process of taking the OSCP or some other InfoSec focus test. And for OSCP specifically, since they don't allow widespread metasploit use on the test, people tend to avoid it even when they're taking the class. And that is a really bad move for a couple reasons. Those of you who watch my stream already know this rant, but it's really bad. It's really bad for a couple reasons. The first off is that metasploit is a great tool. And if you know how it works and you know how it's working underneath the hood, then you can use it very effectively. And if you're a pen tester, you can use it extremely effectively on penetration tests. It's an automation tool. It helps automate what you're doing. Beyond that, learning how to use it's great, but you can use it like we were trying to use it here, where if we know that Metasploit's working, but we can't get our own custom exploit to work, we can launch it and look at what the traffic is doing and learn from there. We got our payload not quite right, or it's sending a different return pointer value than what we're sending, or something like that, right? We can take a look at that, and I think that Metasploit as a troubleshooting tool is also extremely useful and overlooked. Okay, so this machine is back up. We're gonna curl 10.10.10.83. Okay, so it's back up. Let's try and do this manually again. And we're gonna do our so we're just gonna do 76. Oops. 9,000. Oh, we were saying that it sends it as a cookie, right? So let's do that then. So we'll curl. Well, wait, did it? Okay, so yeah, it just did index, and then it did its debug session there. So 10, 10, 10, 83, index.php. We'll do header x forwarded 4, 10, 10, 16, 69. And another header will be cookies. And that was we can use whatever. So sending it as a cookie, we actually didn't, and I guess I could have looked at the TCP flow again. It didn't actually get the debug header back. So I'm not sure that that would have worked anyways. Whereas before, when we were not setting it as a cookie, when we were setting it as a get parameter, which is what that other exploit that we were looking at does, we're at least getting a header come back from the server. Yeah, so cookies, sure, but like, yeah, so I typoed that. But if we look at the metasploit here, they used the correct spelling of cookie without the S, and they didn't actually get that header back, whereas we did get headers back when we were using it as a get parameter. So if we actually just 76. So see, we actually get a cookie back from the server setting up that Xdebug session. So that setting up the Xdebug session worked. It just didn't call back on the port that we were expecting it to call back on, which is like interesting. So I want to get another, oh God, Reznok's here. Everybody go quiet and pretend that nothing's happening. Maybe he'll go away. Let's see here. For everybody who does not know, Reznok is a good friend of mine and a way better hacker than I am, and you should follow him on Twitter at Reznok with a 0 instead of an O. So this is like a bunch of Olympus write-ups about this. I'm really curious why we're not getting a callback on 9000 though. Like really curious. Cause like what? So this is my old Kali box. I'm curious what debug that exploit. So they just use that one. And yeah, I must have used like just the wget or curl command. So I used that path before. Well, poop. Like, oh, I wonder. Oh, it's the metasploit one. Of course it is. Okay, so, I mean... we'll just do the wget. I'm at a loss. I don't understand why. I don't understand why we're not getting callbacks. Like, okay, netcat's working. Can we get callbacks from the network? Like, do we have some stupid... Let's take a look back at this. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the exact same thing that this is. Yeah, the exact same thing. Okay. So... I am super confused. Well, definitely shouldn't be a -I. Like, am I just fat fingering my... No? Is 10, 10, 16, 69? I mean, my VPN is up or I wouldn't be able to access it. Let's see if I can find a write-up. See if there's like something that I'm just completely missing. This is not a write-up. That is not a write-up. I'll see how metasploit does it. Let's that's the other. Yeah, see, we don't get a set cookie here. Let's see if they yeah, so they don't like, there's not multiple requests required. There's not actually the debug parameter to be sent. Parameter can be randomly chosen since it's only used for development environments. Multiple blah. Connects back to a configured IP on port 9000 and waits for instructions. Well, I am not receiving that. Like, wonder if the, like, if we set verbose on and run a check. It is 83, right? I mean, it should be because I'm getting responses back, but like at this point, I can only think that it's just me being really silly. Serve host. Does this need to be 16, 69? Doesn't say to set serve host differently, but maybe we'll give it a shot. Set lhost to 10.0. Service is running but could not be validated. I wonder if there's some sort of like sort of networking issue that's causing it to like me to not receive anything on 9,000. Oh, do we still have I turned off the netcat, right? Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing there. I really had like I don't know what else it could be other than networking issues at this point, unless I'm just completely off base. But given that my notes use this, like I can't imagine this isn't the correct path. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, this appears to be... This is definitely the correct path forward. Pwning those PHP devs. Okay. And the server remote address variables to find out which IP address to use. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, as the connect back IP, which is what we've been doing. Always indexed. Okay, yep. Can get a Xdebug's connect back. This is frustrating. I'm frustrated. Never let it be said that hacking is an easy thing. Like, even if you literally know what you have to do, it never goes that smoothly. Excuse me. Could burp cause this issue? That is a good question. Maybe. I wouldn't. So the answer here is definitely no, and I'll get to why absolutely no in a second. But from a hypothetical stance, like, could burp be doing this? Like, burp can influence your web attacks, and that's something to very much be aware of. it doesn't, it shouldn't ever, though it could cause problems. And in a recent Hack the Box box, you actually do run into issues if you're using burp. However, and as Vindicta said, in this specific case, absolutely not. And the reason absolutely not is because we're not running our curl commands or metasploit through burp. So it's not really in the conversation right now. Like, it's not actually intercepting traffic or anything like that. It's not even being used as a proxy currently. So definitely not. But in general, that is something that you need to be aware of. It like burp absolutely can, not often, and it's not common, but it can interfere with that, and you should, check, kind of reason through your traffic path if you're running into problems like this. But in this case, it's just not part of the conversation. Okay, so what is the problem here? Like, that's, I don't, yeah, so Vindicta says I almost always leave it on as long as I have my scope set up. I was saying that early in the stream, is that I tend to use burp all the time anytime I'm in a web browser or a web client. Sometimes I'll pipe curl through burp, but anytime I'm doing anything web related on an engagement, I'm almost always going through burp. But there are things, there are specific things, and I can't specifically say what without giving away a live Hack the Box thing. But there are I'll call them edge cases because it's rare. It's very specific setups, but there are instances where burp can interfere. And if you've gone through some of the more recent Hack the Box boxes, you may have encountered one of those issues. As far as this is concerned, though, like, I am having a real hard time with this. I'm really at a loss. Like, the only thing, without going into the box, without being in the box and like watching the without watching like the traffic come in to the server, and then like without watching the network traffic, I just don't know what the problem is. Because from my perspective, everything seems to be working correctly. I just don't get any data back on 9000. Oh, wow. All right. Well, we have the person who wrote the metasploit module here. I don't think it's a problem with the metasploit module. So I don't think it's a problem with the exploits that we're running. Everything that we're doing seems to work except receiving. Yeah, everything's working except receiving the callback. And that I just don't, like, I don't know why. And it's really hard to troubleshoot why. I don't have any other way to initiate traffic to it. I could skip a step. I could skip a step. Could I skip a step? So later on in the box, you end up like SSHing in, and if I have those creds, then I guess I could SSH in and then like SSH in and start doing network troubleshooting. But short of doing that, I'm not sure what else. So the person who wrote the metasploit module said that occasionally Xdebug would hang. I don't know if that's right though, because like, I mean, I'm sure that's correct, but I'm not sure if that's what's happening here right now, and I'm debating just bouncing the box again. I mean, we've been sitting here for what, like an hour and a half, trying to the literally the first step to this box that I've already completed. So I'm starting to get a little frustrated. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? It's probably the creds that I have probably aren't going to work because of how the box hops around. So the spoiler is that there's several containers running on this box, and you end up hopping back and forth between different containers as the pivoting. And I don't know that the SSH ports that you end up gaining access to. Oh, you know what? Okay, it does actually. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try and move this off screen and see if I can just SSH it in real quick. And then from there, I can... Why won't you... Why? I just want to detach you. Why won't you? You used to be able to be other... Okay. I'm going to move you here. Does that work? Yes. Okay. So that's on the other screen now. Give me like a couple minutes. All right. Just gonna skip ahead momentarily. And what this will do, this will give me local access to the box, and then from there I won't have root unless I fully root it, which I have the exploits and everything I need on this machine to do that. But what I will have is the ability to send data from that machine to my machine and just make sure that it is like I'm able to get traffic from that machine back to my machine on port 9000. All right. Now, what's going to be really funny is because I also haven't done any of this in 800 something days. Like, it'll be funny if this doesn't work and then I have to troubleshoot this. But I'm not going to spend any time troubleshooting this. I'm just hoping that this works and I can start troubleshooting the other problem that we're having. This box isn't on the freaking VPN. Okay, so I have a box. Let's make sure I have connectivity. Okay, I have connectivity. So I'm going to bring this back over. All right, now I can ping my box, which is great. And if I let's see, NLVP 9000. If I come over here and I NC 10, 10, 16, 69, 9000. Connection refused. So this is the problem, I assume, unless there's some problem with this specific user not being able to, but like, if we, let's see, VP 4443, just go. Now, is this a problem with this specific container, or is this a problem between this box and my box? Let me take a moment to okay, so now I'm root. Oh, but this is just a root container. So sh keygen. Oh, you know what? I should have. MSF module just worked for you. Braxton, did you just try it like several times, or what? Did it not work for you before, or? Okay. Using curl and NC and got nothing. Tried MSF module and it worked first try. Well, so if we just like execute, exploit. Wait, what do you mean handler failed to bind on 1669? Jobs? No jobs. I don't have anything listening on that. Oh, because I'm not on the VPN. Okay. I'm done on the other box, so I'll close this. And I'll reconnect to the VPN, and I'll run this and see if it works. What the actual... Okay, so everybody was here when we tried this like literally ages ago, right? And it didn't work. Well, hold on. Maybe it still hasn't. Like, everybody was here though, right? Everybody watched when we did this. Like, way up here when we were getting like exploit completed but no session created. Is it because I said 443? No, because like we didn't get anything back on 9,000 in our packet capture though. So it's not because I said 443 as the callback. It just didn't work. And so now it did. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that was just that problem. That's so weird. Well, that's an hour and 36 minutes that we'll never get back. But yay, we did the first step. Yay. Here we are. Okay, so we got our access. Now, if we go into, let's see, cat etc password. Let's see what we got here. We got a home Zeus. We got a Zeus person here. Oh, yeah, you can't pipe in interpreter, I guess. That's unfortunate. Okay, but Zeus seems to be the only one we've got. So let's see if we can check out Zeus. Airgeddon. The hell is this? CD captured. Is this like some kind of like packet capture software? Okay, well, let's download captured.cap and let's download papyrus.txt. Let's grab this stuff. Okay. So if we Oops, I probably shouldn't have just closed that, but it's not that big of a deal. All right, so cat captured, or that's going to be a packet capture, which is fine. If we look at papyrus, captured while flying, I'll banish him to Olympia. Signed, Zeus. Okay. So if we try and open this Wireshark, this capture in Wireshark, we will see that there's like a whole bunch of deauths. Huh. So we see a whole bunch of deauths. We also see a bunch of... This is just all like 802.11 stuff. And we see that there's an SSID too close to the sun. Okay. All right. So we've got an SSID. And we've got what look like a bunch of deauths. So commonly, depending on, I'm not sure what Wi-Fi spec this is, but commonly there will be the way that you crack early Wi-Fi, and this isn't to say like modern WPA, like WPA 3 isn't quite out yet, but like WPA2 Enterprise or anything like that. You wouldn't do that for this. But to gather enough data from a wireless access point to be able to crack its key, either its pre-shared key or its encryption key, you're going to just send deauth messages to the access point to kick off a client and make them re-authenticate over and over and over and over again. With WEP, which is really old at this point. It was like the first encryption mechanism for wireless. For WEP, it would take about 5 minutes to deauth someone enough times to be able to crack their password. So from start of attack to cracking, it'd take about 5 minutes. For WAP, it's a little bit different, but we can use, if we have a packet capture with enough data in it. It's all very high level overview. This is not this is like a survey of wireless cracking. This is not like an in-depth instructional on like attacking wireless crypto. But there's a tool that we can use called Aircrack. And Aircrack can take in a packet capture and run it through a bunch of different, depending on the algorithm. For WAP, it's generally like a dictionary style attack. For WEP, you can actually just do crack it, crack the encryption itself. But in WAP, you generally do like a dictionary attack against the packet capture to try and decrypt the traffic. So we'll take a look at Aircrack and see what Aircrack-ng. I think when I post this video, I think we're gonna start at like the 1636 time and just skip like the whole hour of infuriating nonsense. Okay, so we already know the ESSID. We might have to set. I don't think it's WEP. I think I'll go back and look at the Wireshark again to look. Is there like a W or something to set the words? Okay, so we will I don't have Wireshark up anymore, so we'll I don't need this either. Okay. So we'll Wireshark, what was it, captured? And if we scroll down to the bottom, is where we saw the ESSID. Do we, I'm going to assume it's WAP or WPA, not WEP, because I don't even know if they could get WEP working again. But all right, let's do that. So we will gonna say E is too close to the sun. Copy the value. As E is, oops, that's not the value. Right click, copy all visible items. Sure, let's do that. I guess I could have typed it faster than it would have taken for this. Oh my God, no. Why would you? Okay. I will just type it. So what happens when you start getting frustrated is like everything goes to crap. So like you know, you're just not typing correctly, you're not using a mouse correctly. It's just awful all the way around. We're gonna set it to, I don't even know if we need to set it. It might just auto detect that it's like what what protocol it is. So we'll share wordless rock you. We're gonna gunzip share. No file to crack. Oh, yeah. Do we just put that at the end? Yeah, okay. And so it's just captured. And now it's going. And it's literally just doing 27 minutes. Come on. Okay. So I'll explain what it's doing, and then I will stop it. I will create a word list of 1, and I will rerun it to show how it cracks. But it's going through... it's basically going through the all of the hash or all of the words in RockU right now. And frankly, I don't actually even know if the key is in RockU. I forget exactly how I found what word list I found that in. You'll notice that it's only doing, what is that, like 9 million hashes per second or something like that, which is really slow even for a VM. Like that's not quick at all. The reason for that is that WPA uses the SSID as not actually a salt, but uses it sort of like a salt in the encryption or in the encryption algorithm. So it again, it's not exactly a salt, but it sort of uses it like a salt. So the passphrase is added, modified with the SSID as well. The thing that does is it prevents us from creating like pre-calculated hash lists And WPA is also a very slow, like the hashing algorithm used is also very slow. So it's not very quick, but if let's do grep for in user share wordless, fuck you. Okay, it is in there. Okay, so we're just gonna like echo this into word list. We're gonna do the exact same thing, except, oops. Just to show you that it worked. Hey, the key was found. Man, that was fast, super fast. Okay. So I mentioned at the very beginning of this webcast, which is kind of like turning into the year 2020, that it just won't end and is going on way too freaking long. So a year ago when this stream started, I mentioned that I really liked this box except for like one specific part of it. And the one specific part of it that I did not like is this part right here. So this part is a little bit guessy, and it doesn't really flow very well. The only thing that I can say about this is when you're on an engagement, especially when you're on a pen test, maybe less red team, but like when you're on a pen test and you're just trying to like get as much access as possible and find as many flaws and security gaps as possible, you often want to gather word lists and try them everywhere. So anytime you get some new thing that looks maybe not unique, but is specifically partial to the subject that you're attacking, add that to word lists that you have, and then use those in password spraying attempts or offline cracking attempts or things like that. So you combine them with rules and whatnot. But we have an SSID that looks really interesting, right? So we have this SSID, and you can guess, I guess, that somebody came up with this and they're like, oh, this is really complex and long, so I'm also going to use it as passwords. Users do weird stuff. If this sounds super arbitrary and contrived, it is. If Reznok's still in the, if he's still in the chat, we did this box together, and I forget who found it first. I think he might have found it first. But he's like, I figured it out. You're going to be really mad. And we had like been enumerating this for 2 days roughly. And he told me, and I was really mad. So what we're going to do is, this is the SSID for Icarus. And we are going to use this as a password to SSH's Icarus. And I would love to describe to you the path that you're supposed to follow to guess that. I just don't have it for you. And I would love to take you through my thought process on how, but it literally is just, I'm out of ideas. I'm going to start trying random shit. And one of them worked. And to be fair, a lot of hacking is just like beating your head against a wall and coming up with something so ridiculous that you're like, there's no way this is going to work. And then that's the thing that like breaks you through to the next level of access. It's not always pretty. It's not always super, suave or anything. It just is what it is. So we're going to SSH's Icarus to Olympus. But we're going to do it on, if we remember our nmap, we're going to do it to port 2222. And we're going to do that because it is an OpenSSH port and the other one's filtered. So we're going to SSH as Icarus at 10.10.10.83 port 2222. And we're going to use that too close to the sun as the password. Yes. All right. And if we look here, we'll see. Oh, we have a message from the gods. Oh, hey, IPSEC's in the room. Hey, IPSEC. Everybody wave to like the actual celebrity in the room. We have a message from the gods, so we're going to check it out. And it's going to say, Athena, goddess, will guide you through the dark. Way to Rhodes, CTF Olympus.htb. So this is an interesting bit of information because, as I mentioned before, if we go back to our Nmap output, I was talking about how we have a port 53 open on TCP. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that can help lead us to thinking about zone transfers, DNS zone transfers. One of the things you need for zone transfers is the domain that you're trying, or the namespace that you're trying to transfer. Quick, brief history about zone transfers and what they're used for, and why they even exist, and then we'll talk about why they're useful. And I'll actually, this won't show you why they're useful, but I'll talk about why they're useful. So when you set up DNS, you generally set up DNS in clusters, and not the way we talk about like Kubernetes clusters these days. They're similar, but they're not shared resources. They're more like availability clusters. So you have, primary and secondary DNS or tertiary DNS servers. You generally have your primary DNS that actually has write control over your DNS zones in your private area, in your private networks. They're behind firewalls. They're very secluded. They're very high security. And then you'll have like secondary and tertiary, depending on how your DNS infrastructure set up. You'll have secondary and tertiary DNS servers as well. And they are read-only. And they are read-only. They're put out on the internet. They're put out in the networks for people to interact with. And they're set up read-only so that if somebody's able to compromise them, they can't do any damage. All they can do is just read your DNS, which is useful for them. But they're not like rewriting DNS entries or anything like that. The way that these secondary and tertiary servers get all of the zone data for your domain is by initiating a zone transfer from your primary DNS server. And the way that should be set up is your primary servers should only allow zone transfers from very explicitly allowed servers. So you say, okay, this is my primary zone server. I'm going to set up the ability to zone transfer, but only that server and that server and that server is allowed to do it. That's it. Okay. It is less of a common misconfiguration these days, though. Once you get inside networks, I still see it from time to time. But it used to be like, even on the internet, you just see a ton of DNS servers out there that allow zone transfers. But one of the things you need to initiate that is the domain itself. So let's do a zone transfer. So I'm going to use dig. You can do this through NSLookup as well, but I'm going to use dig. We're going to set the DNS server that we're querying. Okay, so we have to tell it what server we're zone transferring from. You can't just use any server. You need to use the authoritative server for the domain. So in dig, here, I'll bring this up to the top. In dig, the way that you tell it what server you want to use is an @ symbol. So at 10.10.10.83, we're going to set the transfer type to AXFR. So we're going to transfer all records. And we want to do that for CTF Olympus.htb. So CTF Olympus.htb. And so now we got a whole bunch of output. I'm going to run this again and just output it to, we'll call it zone transfer, just to keep my notes, just to, like later on, if I need to refer back to this, then I can. Okay. So we have we've got a bunch of different stuff. So we've got here lies the roads. Here lies the great colossus of roads is that's a text record. We got a few different things. We got mail and NS name servers for this. We got let's see, and then we've got another text record that has some information for us. So it says Prometheus, open a temporal portal to Hades and steal the fire. Okay, so a little bit of mythology here. So Prometheus was the one that stole the fire of the gods to bring it to mankind to kind of teach us technology, essentially. I'm not really the myths person. My wife is like, could probably tell us all about the actual story and like neat little tidbits, but I just don't. So here's some numbers. Now, I don't know how to feel about this. I don't like this technique. I think that it is overused in CTFs, or it used to be more overused. I think just a lot of people don't know about it or have forgotten about this technique over time. And luckily it's rarer now, but I still have bad memories of it being used all the time. So, but I think it's important to know about this because people actually have used this as a security mechanism in the past, which is why it was in so many CTFs. So these are all valid port numbers. And what we're seeing here is it says open a temporal portal. So this is saying that we're going to like open something. We're going to utilize these three numbers somehow to open up a portal. And the first four letters of portal is port. So if we refer back to the fact that, actually, have we gotten user yet? No, we haven't gotten user yet. Okay, cool. So if we refer back to our nmap output here, at the very beginning of this stream, I mentioned that the fact that SSH was filtered is important. How do I start this? Not gracefully. So there's this thing called port knocking, and it's an older technique. And as I said, people did use it for like security purposes. But what would happen is they would have a firewall set up, and that firewall would block a port, keep a port filtered until something happened. And what port knocking is it listens on a series of ports, and sometimes it doesn't matter what order they're in, and sometimes you have to do it in specific order within a specific amount of time. But basically what it is that you send packets, typically send packets, though more sophisticated port knocking existed, but you send packets to these ports in their order. And if you do it correctly, if you knock correctly, you do your special knock on the ports, it will open up the filtered port for you. It doesn't always have to be a filtered port. Like it could just be like not open at all and not responding. It could just be dropping the packets until you do the correct port, until you do the correct knock. Though in CTFs, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of shortcuts for rationalizing through CTFs. In CTFs, it's generally weird to see a filtered port unless you're supposed to interact with it either through pivoting around or through port knocking or something like that. So when we see a message like this, what this says to me is that we want to open a port using these three ports, which seems to be port knocking. Additionally, this message is to Prometheus, so this could be our username, and this very much looks like a password. So we have a possible username and password here. So what we're going to do to do a port knock is we'll write a quick one-line bash script, though we could write a Python script. We could do a bunch of different things for this. But we're going to write a quick Python script. So we're going to say for I, which is our iterator variable in this case, 3456, 8234, and 62431. We're going to nmap, and we're just going to do like, we don't want to do like host verification, right? So we're using nmap here basically to send a packet, like essentially a send packet to the target port, and that's it. And since we're doing that, we don't want to do like all of the host verification first. We don't want to, you know, ping it and then see if ports are open or really any of that stuff. So we're going to do a -pn to assume that the host is up. And then we're going to set our port to $i. So we're going to iterate through these three values, and I is going to assume the role of this value each time we iterate through. And so that's just going to be put there for our port value. And 10, 10, 10, 83, done. I'm really bad with bash scripting because I don't do it very often. So if this doesn't work right out of the gate, that's my warning. It did. Okay, so we're gonna SSH Prometheus at 10, 10, 10, 83. Did we do it fast enough? We did. Okay. One thing that's important to know about port knocking is sometimes they are, since it is programmatic, they can be extremely fiddly. Port knocking is like the definition of security through obscurity. And so a lot of people will go through a lot of lengths to make it harder and harder and harder to like guess and infer. So it is security through obscurity. It can work. I've seen people like set up like crypto algorithms with their port knocking and stuff. It's wild, but it is a thing that exists. So we're gonna grab this password and paste it in. There's a better way to do port knocking. So here, since I already knew that 22 was going to open, I basically just did the port knocking and then SSH'd immediately. But you can do the port knocking and then after your for loop is over, run an nmap scan to just see what's open. And in this case, since we already knew that 22 was filtered, we could just run an nmap scan against 22 and it would show open. And you're like, okay, cool. That's how we open it. I've written like port knockers in the past that just kind of brute force port knocking. They work sort of sometimes. That I don't know. It's security through obscurity, so you want to call it bad, but they're pretty effective for the most part. Okay, so we are Prometheus, and we see that we have the user flag now. So as you're aware, I usually don't put flags on the stream, but if you're following along, you can grab that flag now for your whopping 0 points. But, you know, completionists are completionists, and I get it. I get it. So we have another message from the gods here. MSG. All right. Only if you serve well to the gods, you'll be able to enter the Olympus. Only if you serve well to the gods. Okay. All right. Interesting. So some general enumeration here. Like once we get like normal access, right? Let's do a sudo -l. See if we have the ability to run sudo, and we have its password, so we can actually do that. A lot of times when you're hacking, you don't necessarily have their password, and so when you do a sudo -l, it's just like enter your password and you Control-C out of it because you don't have it yet. But we do. It still can't run anything, which is interesting. We can do we'll do a find for like set UID binaries. Oh, shit. Let's get rid of our errors. So we have a few set UID binaries, but I don't see anything uncommon, like nothing out of the ordinary. So usually what you're looking for is like non-standard system set UIDs, like in somebody's home directory or in like user local bin or something like that, that somebody wrote, right? You want something that somebody wrote to take shortcuts, because that's what's going to let you privesc. We can also just run like a netstat. Let's grep listen minus I listen. Minus I just makes it case insensitive. So we don't have anything listening. Sometimes when you get into a new box, you'll see like a port listening on localhost only. And so, you know, that's some local service, maybe a database that you can access. Who knows? Just kind of see what else is running, and then we'll like run a PS just to check out like what services we got running. And this is interesting. So when we have Docker running, we can start thinking about different container escapes or different things, right? So when we get access to a Docker container, we may have access to the backend network that the containers are running on. So maybe we'll get some pivoting opportunities to other potential containers. Sometimes we just have a straight container escape at times. We can look for, if we do like a find iname docker.sock, is it with a K? I'm just going to do it. I think it's docker.socket, but we'll just do this. So we do have the Docker socket, which is interesting. That is actually, you're not supposed to do that. Okay, so only the root or the Docker group has access to that. Let's see what our groups are. We're in the Docker group. Okay, so we've got a couple interesting opportunities ahead of us here. So docker.sock sock container escape. Okay, so, oh, that's just setting it up. All right. So let's see if we can run this. So what this is doing is it's using curl to query this Docker endpoint through the docker.sock socket. Okay, and this is a socket that's used specifically for communication between host and container and things like that. And you really shouldn't mount that into a container. But let's see if this works. And it does. Okay, so we have information on all of the different containers in here. And let's see. So that can start containers, start a container, start a connection to the container. So this is allowing us to pivot out to other, is this a, have a root shell in the Docker container, most of you. We grab, so just FYI, this is not how I don't think this is how I finished the, I don't think this is how I did it last time. That's why I'm like kind of reading through this. Get the following response. Okay, so that runs Docker PS. So we exec into it. Oops. Oh. Oh, yeah, okay. So that's exactly what we're doing. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Is the Docker... Okay, so Docker's installed. Yeah, okay. So we're going to basically use Docker to run a... we're going to use Docker to run a container and mount the host file system to that container where we're root. And then we're going to use the fact that we're root in this container that has access to the host root file system and use it to read files or escalate or whatever we want to do. So, so if we do Docker run, I have like help over here. So we're going to do like Docker run, so I'm going to do V. We want to take the host root directory and we're going to mount it to like host. And then call it foobar. We'll call it rook because whatever. And usually like bash. I know like all the examples give us like, or oh, do we need to use a container that's like already in here? Can we do Docker images? Oh, okay, so we'll do okay, so I'm in here, and if we do an ls, we've got a host here. We'll cd to host, and we'll cd to root. Oh. Okay. Good times. So I CD'd to host, and here was the host file system. And then I CD'd to /root instead of CD to root, which took me to the /root of the container, not the /host/root, which is the root's home directory on the host file system. So we come in here and we see that we have the root flag. Also, if earlier when I was about to start trying to like troubleshoot everything, I uploaded a key to the host's authorized keys folder, because I was about to SSH in and then start doing some network troubleshooting back and forth. And then we're like, oh, but we have, but like metasploit just started working for some reason. So I didn't actually need that for the troubleshooting purposes, but that's there. And we can tell like specifically that this is on the host and that this is the thing that I put there, because that's the pub key that I generated earlier in the stream. So here we are. That is, that took way too long. Like from the time that we actually did the first step to now was what, like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And the first hour and 40 minutes was just frustration. So, I mean, I guess that's what I get for being gone for so long and not doing a stream forever. I have a question in the chat. What are the specs of my PC? That's a good question. It's several years old. I forget what processor is in it, but it is a 6-core hyper-threaded Core i7 from 4-ish years ago. It works pretty well. I mean, you know, CPUs haven't gotten much faster. They've gotten more threaded in recent years, but like honestly, the speeds have not gotten too much faster, especially on the Intel side. Modern Ryzen, like AMD, either Ryzen or Threadripper CPUs are super exciting. And when I upgrade my computer either late this year or early next year, I'm probably going to get a Ryzen or a Threadripper. I've got 64 gigs of RAM, I think, because I do a lot of VMs, obviously. And then I've got a couple different SSDs and a couple big spinning drives for storage and stuff like that. And I've got a 1080 Ti for my graphics card for gaming. But I am definitely going to upgrade to those new RTX 30s. I should just get a 3080, but like half of me just wants to like obliterate my savings and get a 3090 because they're ridiculous, and I feel like my graphics card should be able to, you know, be used as a melee weapon. I don't know. But yeah, that's my specs. Does anybody have any other questions about what we've done? So I'll recap in case anybody wants to type. But we started off with just some general enumeration, some end mapping. We saw the debug header that led us to some Googling. Through our Googling, we found that there was an exploit to take advantage of the Xdebug header. We had some issues with the exploit for a couple reasons. And I'm not sure. I kind of want to set up, I'll probably set up one of those local Dockers that they had to just kind of set up a vulnerable like Xdebug server and like figure out what was going on there. But we got stuck on that for a little while. Once we got that working, we found, what was the next step? Oh, we found the packet capture. And so the packet capture had an SSID that looked like a password, and its password talked about Icarus, and also the message from Zeus talked about Icarus. So we used Icarus and that SSID as the password to SSH in to the box. Once we did that, we found a domain name, which we used to zone transfer. The zone transfer had some information about port knocking. So we port knocked, the server opened up an SSH port, SSH'd in as Prometheus, which we found also in the zone transfer. Once we SSH'd in, we found that Prometheus was had the ability to run Docker commands. And you know what? Now that I'm recapping this, oh man, so we weren't in it. So Prometheus wasn't in a Docker container. Probably, I think he's just in the host. So we didn't need to escape anything. We just we used the fact that we were in the Docker group and that we could create containers with volumes. So we created a container with the volume of the root of the home of the host server. We mounted that into the container, and then we exec'd into that container where we were root, and used our root level access to gain access to the host file system as root, even though we were inside of a container. So so that was kind of the walkthrough. Doesn't look like we have anybody asking any questions. We actually have like a few people that have hung in there this whole time, which is incredible considering how rocky it was early. But yeah, so that was my return to streaming. As I said before, I am not coming back to the frequency that I was before. I'm not going to be trying for weekly streams or anything like that. It's a holiday weekend in the US, so I have a 3-day weekend, and I figured this would be a fun time to do it. I do want to stream more regularly though, so maybe once a month. But I think everybody here is probably follows me on Twitter, or at least it is connected with me on some social media platform, and so that I'll announce it there. The stream's not monetized, but I guess if you turn on notifications, you'll know if I go live. But yeah, it'll be pretty inconsistent. So Proxy Programmer is new here. Welcome, Proxy Programmer. Thanks for hanging out with us. Erica, thanks for hanging out the whole time too. And we should do like a co-stream or something sometimes. When we did it with Rando, it was a lot of fun. So, but yeah, just thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you next time. Oh, here's something. Either in the comments on the video or at me on Twitter or something, let me know what you think about the webcam, because this is the first time my streams had a webcam, and the poll on Twitter was like 50-50, and so like let me know if you liked it or not, or if it was distracting, or if it was stupid. But I'm interested in your opinion. If we like the webcam, if that ends up staying, then I'll probably get some sort of like border or UI or something, so that it kind of has its space and the computer has its space and whatnot. So, anyways, let me know. I will catch you. Yeah, my Vector knows me in real life. My hair is super long, not as long as it used to be like way back in the day, but it's getting there. It's on its way. Anyways, thanks again so much.